We are from Park Brook Elementary. It's in just outside, just north of Minneapolis, and we're part of the Osseo Area Schools District. My name's Scott Taylor, and I'm the principal of Park Brook Elementary, and Dan Nelson is the behavior intervention teacher at Park Brook. So just to tell you a little bit about me so you know who I am and where I come from. I was a social studies teacher. I taught at both the high school and the middle school level. I was also a special education teacher, taught self-contained EBD, and also in a resource room. And then I was a behavior intervention teacher before becoming principal. I grew up in San Diego, and there's a story as to how I ended up in Minneapolis. But after high school, I went to Northern Arizona University, where I majored in history and also attained my teaching license. And then, so I have, from Northern Arizona University, I have my master's from St. Cloud, and then my administration license from St. Mary's University. I ended up in Minneapolis, and you can see up here, there's a big lake there. We'll be talking about that lake a little bit because in there it's nice, looks nice, like a nice fall day, but when that lake freezes over, that is one of the places where we take our students out for an event on snowshoes.
All right, and my name is Dan Nelson. I grew up in North Dakota. I lived in Valley City through 6th grade, and then went to Fargo and graduated from Fargo South. And I see Corey Lehman, a former coach, right out here, so that's fun. Cool. I went on to Moorhead State, which is now Minnesota Moorhead. St. Mary's for my master's and my principal licensure through St. Thomas. I started out teaching in Los Angeles. I was in Los Angeles Unified School District for 4 years in San Fernando Valley, Sunland. And then went to taught 3rd grade and 4th grade. Went to Crestview Elementary, which is another school in our district in Osseo. Was there for 11 years teaching 4th, 5th, and 6th grades. And this is my 7th year working with Scott at Park Brook as the BID, which is kind of like Dean of Students, assistant principal without the observations of teachers.
Well, the reason we're talking about focus on fitness, it's what we are doing at Park Brook Elementary. And I probably never would have done this if I was not at Park Brook. I was a principal of Weaver Lake Elementary, and Weaver Lake Elementary is one of the highest socioeconomic schools in our district. I remember parents looking at the school the year before. I had one family that traveled over from England because they were moving, just to sort of get an idea of where they wanted to buy a house. It was also some of the highest proficiency in our district as well. Budget cuts came, and we had to close a school, and I knew I was being transferred. When I finally found out which school I was going to, I realized I was going to Park Brook. And my first thought was, I will never be happy in a teaching position or principal position again. Park Brook had a reputation at the time, and I think rightfully so it had a reputation. I do enjoy being there. I hope to be there until the day I retire. I enjoy what I do. Here I am out getting ready to go for a bike ride with my students. But the year before I was at Park Brook, there had been 55 suspensions, and they were also on the AYP list because they were not meeting annual yearly progress. I was greeted by a couple of teachers who said, "Oh, Scott, once you see the students, you will understand." And all I thought was, you know what? I am not going to be running a school that is going to be at the very bottom of the list and having to go through all of this state reporting and all of these other issues that we were dealing with. With the 55 suspensions, this building was still out of control. So that's when we started to do some research as to what are we going to do to turn the school around.
So there's 3 outcomes for today from this presentation. The first one is share with you what fitness in action, our focus in fitness looks like at our school, and then to talk about our fitness goals, and then finally the results that we've been getting over the last 5 years with this.
One of the things that happened the first year, it was actually the first year that Dan joined Park Brook, was Eric Jensen came. Eric Jensen talked about physical education and how some of the students who are performing the best are on the cross-country team. My FIAD teacher at the time talked about we should get the kids running and start looking at different places that we could take them for field trips and getting them involved. So we took his research, and there was 5 or 6 schools that brought him Eric Jensen in. We were the only school that decided, you know what, if we're going to do this, we need to go full steam ahead with having fitness. Eric Jensen's book is on the left side, Teaching with Poverty in Mind. We also did some research through the book Spark and read that book by Dr. Rady. In there, he talks about the importance of increasing fitness to increase your academic growth. And so that was the basis. What we're doing, it's based upon research. I'm not really a researcher. I'm more of an implementer of the research.
Okay, so we kind of want to distinguish between the two. We have physical education on one side, which is teaching skills, also working with fitness, but it's more of teaching lifelong skills of being active in different sports and so on. And then we have the fitness side, which is increasing students' overall fitness, and we do that in a variety of ways with our before and after school programs that we'll get into, but also during the actual day as well. So they support each other, but it's not like this is taking the place of FIAD. Okay, it's supplementing with FIAD.
Yes, we want to make sure we're very clear with that, because our idea with Focus on Fitness is not for principals to get the idea, you know, we could save a lot of money and start getting rid of our FIAD teachers if we just start doing these other programs. We want to make sure that we are very clear that we believe FIAD teachers are essential. So Focus on Fitness in action. We have some before and after school activities, and we're able to pay for these through what we call targeted services. It has nothing to do with Target stores, but targeted services. And it's one, in the state of Minnesota, we can extend the school day for students who qualify. I can usually expect that I'll have 83% of my students who am able to qualify for additional funding for before or after school activities. We have 80% of our students who are qualify for free and reduced lunch. 90% of our students are students of color. We have a high mobility rate, and we also have about 30% of our students who are somewhere on the continuum of learning English.
So when we start off the year, so for example, this year we had a 5-week boot camp after school with 120 kids. We only have 300 in the school. So they would meet 3 times a week, and then the culmination of that event was the Twin Cities 5K, which we brought a busload of kids down to run that. But it's just a variety of different activities. It's training for the 5K, but it's also fun and games and that sort of thing too.
And we just started this week. I've learned over the years that if you run the program the whole year, you burn out your teachers, and you also have students that are not as motivated to remain in the programs. So we just started this week. We do this a couple times a year, our Morning Move program, where students come before school for about 40 minutes for what we call exercise, but for the kids, we do games. My only requirement is they have to be games where the kids are running. Kickball, you're standing in line. We want the kids moving.
And then Double Dutch, I coached the Double Dutch team along with our FIAD teacher, and we've been in a building process for the last few years. We work with the American Heart Association. They sponsor us to go around to other schools as a demo team and kick off the Jump Rope for Heart fundraisers. And so we opened it up to 2nd grade. We're pre-K through 5th grade, our building. And we had to cap it. We had 42 kids sign up for Double Dutch 2nd grade through 5th. So we're starting practice on Monday, and we'll have to see where we're at. We have a lot of kids back from last year, but this is Mondays and Wednesdays after school for an hour, and then we'll take field trips during the day to go to different schools. But It's something our kids are really excited about, and it's been fun to watch it grow over the past couple of years.
And so they'll be practicing twice a week, which is increasing their fitness. Then, come February, we'll do another morning move session, 2 mornings a week. And then
we have another boot camp at the end of the year, which is also again after school, 3 days a week, which that one culminates in a different fun run at Como Park, which is in St. Paul. I think it's a 2-mile run.
So throughout the year, we have before and after school fitness activities for our students, which has really helped to raise the level of our fitness, the level of our students' fitness, and we've been able to compare it to some of our neighboring schools, and the students are passing those achievement tests, those proficiency, at a much higher rate than our neighboring schools. We also have Girls on the Run, which is a program that is a national program, and it's September through November, and then March through June. It combines running and character and leadership development for the girls. So it's a great program. It's available throughout the United States, but we have, you can see before and after school, a number of activities to increase the fitness level of our students. As Dan mentioned, we do have culminating field trips that we use for these different activities. We have some for the fall, winter, and then also in the spring. Here we have a picture of our social worker taking a selfie, but we were at the Twin Cities 5K. So on a Saturday morning, we had 53 students show up, 7:15 a.m. The first time we did this about 5 years ago, I really wasn't sure how many would actually show up. But 7:15 in the morning, the kids are lining up, ready to go, excited. We all wear the yellow shirts so I can find them again. The first time I was a little bit nervous because you start a 5K and you think, I just hope at the end I can find 53 students again. And have not lost one of them. But they have a great time when we go. You can see here we are arriving one day for the Twin Cities 5K. It's in conjunction with the Twin Cities Marathon.
This is a winter fun run at the University of Minnesota, their indoor track facility. And this is, we bring our kindergarten through 2nd graders to this event, or pre-K2 through 2nd grade. And it's just a fun event where they each get to run a race around the track, and they go by age group. They have a bunch of fun activities to do off to the side too, and exercise, dancing, and all kinds of jump roping stuff.
And this is another picture. They all receive medals. The kids are excited. We've found out that we're building not only the fitness levels, but community within our school with the activities that we are doing. In the winter, we'll be starting our cross-country ski lessons, and the Lopit Foundation is a foundation in the city of Minneapolis, and they work with 6 different schools, and they send coaches, and they teach our kids how to cross-country ski. They are giving them skills that they might not otherwise have, and then culminates, we take the kids out on a Saturday once again, out to Lake of the Isles, and they do cross-country skiing, and then we also stay there for a little bit later because they have what's called the Luminary Lopit. And I remember the eyes of my students when they saw this for the first time. Thousands of luminaries made out of ice out on a frozen lake. And one of the things that I remember is that not only are they getting fitness, not only are we building community, but they are learning. It's a great experience because some of the students we're finding do not have these experiences. And sometimes when you have parents who are in poverty or parents who come from other countries, they don't know how to access all that is available to them. And there's really a sort of a secret, hidden, it's not really a secret, but sort of a hidden culture of how you navigate getting involved in different big activities such as the Lopit activities or the Twin Cities Marathon. How do you do that? By opening up our students' eyes, I'm also hopeful that not only will they, but hopefully their kids, we're opening up doors for themselves and also for the future generations.
Another one, we take about 100 kids to the YMCA for a one-time field trip. We have different stations where they're rock climbing, we bring them into the pool, and then there's another area for the games. On the basketball court, they're playing Gaga ball and some other things in there, 9 square and stuff. So just another example, and then we have a partnership with the Y. So they are actually offering, they give us swimming lessons for our third graders. We brought them over in the spring, and then they do summer programming too, or our kids get a discount to do that. It's been really great to work with them.
Yes. When you think about the swimming lessons, the number of students that we have that cannot swim is amazing. It's one of those things that we might take for granted, but when you live in a state with 10,000 lakes and pools, and also when you have families that are living in poverty, many of those apartment complexes have pools. Kids don't always realize how dangerous those pools can be, and neither do the parents. You might be wondering, how do you do all these things before and after school? I do pay my teachers through our targeted services. Does it take some extra time on my part? Absolutely. However, I will tell you that when I first started at Park Brook, we had a before school program where kids would go to the computer lab. Well, after about the first few months of this, I thought something has got to change, because the kids came in, they had to be quiet, and I knew that before school started, I had kids lined up at the door who they were being kicked out because they were not behaving. Throughout the entire day, I had kids not behaving, and I was dealing with all of these behaviors. Now you walk into the building, it has completely changed. I would much rather spend a little bit of time having fun with the kids instead of spending my days dealing with discipline, because that is not a fun way to spend your days. So there's the Twin Cities in Motion, and they put on the Twin Cities Marathon, and they also provide a lot of the funding. It's amazing, if you reach out to some of these organizations, they will pay for funding. Twin Cities in Motion pays for our buses, they pay for the registration for all my kids who are free and reduced, and they usually send a gift card of about $350 just to say, thank you for coming. The Lopin Foundation pays for our buses, the registration, they send the coaches. They also provide hats for all of the kids so that they all have matching hats, which has worked out great on that frozen lake, so I can find all of our students when it's dark. So as an administrator, not evaluating whether your current reality is right or wrong, how will your scores be reflected or publicized in the community? I would say I know that for reality in the state of Minnesota, my scores will be in the Star Tribune. I know for a fact that we can open up the newspaper and find our scores there. They're also publicized on the website, and parents are looking at them as well. So we know for a fact that as administrators, we are looking at what's going to happen. Well, one of the reasons why we're doing the fitness is because I want to increase my academic scores. In the book Spark, it's 279,000 students that were assessed using the FitnessGram, and when they looked at their scores, the more points that they received on the FitnessGram, the higher their fitness level, the higher their academic achievement. If they received only 1 point, the lowest amount of points they could receive, their academic scores were lower. So there's a direct correlation between fitness and academic growth. So that's why I asked that other question, is because as administrators, we are generally looking at our academic scores. I know when my superintendent comes out, she's going to be asking about our academic scores. So when we think about a school that is struggling academically, generally speaking, what they do is they start focusing more on reading and math, because they know they have got to bring those scores up. And that they know there could be consequences if they do not bring those scores up. We have had that happen in our district, and so I want to make sure that I avoid that, and that is why we're doing Focus on Fitness.
All right, so here's 2 PET scans, I believe. And on the left, you have just someone sitting for 20 minutes and then a snapshot of their brain activity. And on the right, after 20 minutes of walking. So you can see there's quite a bit more brain activity going on. And if it was running or vigorous exercise, it would be more colorful, more red, quite a lot lit up. So this kind of leads into the next part here, where we're getting our kids ready for learning. We'll go there in a minute. Okay. Let's go back to this. This is what you were talking about earlier, right, Scott?
Yes.
So we have the different, pass 1 test, here's your results. I know it's a long ways away, but we have reading in blue and math in red. And this California standardized test. So when they're passing one, getting 1 point for the fitness gram, here is where they're at, 2, 3. So as they move across, and this is 5th grade, 9th grade, 7th grade, and 9th grade, it's the same trend. So the higher fitness level the kids are at, the higher they're achieving. This is that based on about 279,000 kids in California.
Many people will say that we want to get the kids moving because we want to get the wiggles out. And I try to tell teachers it has nothing to do with getting the wiggles out, because we want the kids moving to increase their academic growth. If you think back to this scan of the brains where after a 20-minute walk, the brain is much more alive. And so as I tell my teachers, you spend all of that time preparing a lesson. You're trying to prepare a quality lesson to deliver a great math lesson, great reading lesson, and you want to have you want to have their brains ready to receive it. And so that's why if you're exercising or doing some movement right before you're learning, you increase the academic growth. I was observing one teacher, and she started off with some movement, and it was going great. She started teaching, the kids were engaged. About 35 minutes into it, all of a sudden I started to notice the kids were not actually being disrespectful or trying to be off task. I could just see on their faces, they were sort of zoning out. Well, I kept thinking, okay, we're probably going to get ready to do some movement, because in my building, the standard is about every half hour, you get the kids up and you are moving. Well, during the post-observation, I asked her, could you tell me a little bit about why you didn't do some movement at this point? And she said, well, you were observing, and I thought I better push through the lesson. And I said, you could have gained a lot of learning time by giving up a few minutes of instructional time, just to get the kids' brains back and engaged. And we're finding that instead of having to deal with behaviors, let's just get the kids up and moving, and we can get them right back into learning again. The reality is, I want them up, I want them moving, because I want to increase their academic growth rate.
So just to go back and kind of review a minute, we're trying to increase the overall fitness of every child, but also right before instructional time, increasing the moderate to vigorous activity before, during instruction time.
Yeah, so two different types of fitness that we are doing with them. There's some research, and on our webpage for Brook Elementary, if you Google it, or on our website, I do have business cards that could also help you if you're looking for it. But there's some research about first grade boys. And the research states that if you have the first grade boys up and moving, and they move a lot more during first grade, they will do better in reading in second and third grade. But I know as a district, we have to take the Dibbles test. We're monitoring all of those students all of the time to figure out how are they doing. But the research says the opposite. We want all of our kids to be reading. And I always say, I'm not opposed to math or reading. I want those scores to go up. But the reality is that if I want my students to really progress, I look at the research, get those first grade boys moving. My two first grade teachers, we have 2 sections at every grade, came to me and they said, Scott, we have a request. And I'm thinking, oh, what is the request? So they said, okay, the kids are struggling at the end of the day. And it was almost torture this year with this group, trying to get them focused. So they said, we're wondering, can we take them out for an extra recess? I said, oh, that's easy. Yes, of course you can take them out for an extra recess. And the reality is that is going to help them, because why are we trying to force through lessons when we're trying to deal with behaviors? Let's take them outside. We can avoid some of those behaviors, give them what they need physically, and then bring them back in for some more instruction. Because in the long run, it's going to pay off for us and for the students. So we'd like to show you this short video that our district made regarding focus on fitness. The Focus on Fitness vision came about as I was looking at our interventions, academics, and realizing we have interventions in place, but we need to prepare the students for learning. As a staff and as a school, we've been looking at how can we incorporate more movement into the school day, because there's research that kids will learn and retain what they are learning if they are moving. And there's also the whole research that if you are physically active and if the blood's flowing, you remember it and your brain functions better. So we decided if we're going to do it, we need to go full steam ahead.
Focus on fitness prepares me for class, which helps keep my grades up.
Focus on Fitness has been in place for 3 years now here at Park Brook with our before school activities, our after school activities. The teachers have been really working at increasing movement in the classroom with having their lessons be more active, having the kids move. Last year we added stability seats in the classroom, so students in most of our classrooms are sitting on stability balls. Teachers also have the kids take brain breaks, which means the kids stand up, they move, and looking at how often are we having our students move here at the school. So it's not uncommon to walk by and seeing the kids do active lessons rather than just being out their seats.
Whoa! Almost there.
We started the Morning Move program about 5 years ago, which is before school exercise program. And then 3 years ago we added in our boot camp, which is in the fall and in the spring we offer 5 weeks of after school fitness for 3 nights a week.
Focusing on fitness helps me with my education and my great attitude.
During the school year we have activities throughout the year here at the school, but then we also take students on field trips outside of the school day. One of those is to the Twin Cities 5K. Took 53 students down on a bus to the state capitol, and we ran the Twin Cities 5K. And so we've taken students to the Coon Rapids YMCA where they can use the climbing wall, swim, and other fitness activities, just to introduce the kids to different types of experiences. And then in the spring we've taken our kids down to Como Park for a fun run that's held. In January we have a snowshoe boot camp where we have kids on snowshoes outside, and then we take kids down to the Luminary Lopit on Lake of the Isles on the first weekend in February. And before that, some of our kids will be doing the mini Lopit, which is on cross-country skis. With our focus on fitness, we have been focusing on our fitness and also on nutrition. Park Brook Elementary is the only elementary school in the district with a salad bar as a lunch entree. And so each day we have between 30 and 60 students that choose that. And then we've also added this year an air pop popcorn popper instead of the ones that use the oil.
Focusing on fitness helps me be a better problem solver at school.
We have a wellness committee, which is really the driving force behind our focus on fitness. Now we have students and staff together working, and we now have a parent who's on our committee as well. The students have a lot of fun with the different activities that we're doing. I think we are engaging the kids in school, and while we're preparing them for learning and increasing academics, we try to make everything fun. One of the things that is important is equity, because in the state of Minnesota, we have one of the greatest academic achievement gaps in the nation. We know that our black students are performing lower. The students who are black students who are not on free and reduced lunch are performing lower than our white students who are on free and reduced lunch. So we know, and I know, that we have an academic achievement gap, and I believe it's one of my missions for my students to close that, because I want to see high academic growth for all. We also know that we are suspending black students at a much greater rate than we are our white students, and so we believe that I believe it's a moral imperative that we have got to change what's happening for our students in our state, but also the place that I can impact is my school. And so we also have transformational instructional changes.
So like we talked about earlier, you saw in the video they're doing this Go Noodle was the video they're watching when the kids were all jumping back and forth, and you can do like a 2 or 3 minute video, which is intentional brain boost midway through. And at first it takes a little while to train them how to get back on task right away afterwards, but it's like anything, you teach the procedure and then eventually it's all working great. And the stability balls and hokey stools. Now the hokey stools are for the pre-K and the kindergartners. They're rounded on the bottom, so they can kind of wobble back and forth a little bit. And with the stability balls, I've been really impressed how, first of all, how it hasn't been an issue. I mean, it's a little bit of a novelty at first, but it's just like chairs after a while. It's important to be moving and get the blood flowing, and I don't know, it's went beyond my expectations. I was a little scared at first, especially because I'm the one that deals with all the behavior, how this is going to all roll out now.
Last year I had the privilege of introducing Dr. Rady when he came to the Twin Cities, talking about what we are doing with his research. And I specifically asked, what is the research behind the hokey stools, the stability balls? And he said that it's about a 10% increase in brain function when the kids are sitting on these. I would also like to mention that we also had Be Fit to Learn. They came, and Lois right here as one of the instructors with them. She came to my building 2 years in a row for 2 days, full-day workshops where I brought in all of the staff, where we focused on how to increase movement during instruction. My staff thought it was one of the best workshops that they have ever attended.
We used to have a winter carnival. The parents would show up and we'd sell a bunch of little stuff, and it was really difficult kind of management nightmare, and parents would be upset because their kids are asking for more money and all this stuff. So we decided to just change that whole thing and do a health fair. And it started with a partnership with Alina Healthcare. They sent people out, and we've kind of just kept that going. Where we bring in the students, we bring in a bounce house and a bunch of stuff for the kids to do, and the parents can just drop them off. It's $5 a kid. There's no trinkets, prizes. They get water, they get popcorn, and then the parents, we have a bonfire across in the park. The parents can go cross-country skiing if they want, or just socialize, and it's great. I mean, parents love it. They can drop their kids off for 3 hours, do what they want. We get a chance to connect with them. The kids have a great time. So just kind of looking at how we can change things to make it better for everyone, and also increase awareness with the fitness as well.
And so one of the things I would ask you to ask your Phi Ed teachers, perhaps during observations, things along those lines, but can they articulate with research how their work is essential to the overall academic achievement scores in your school? Because it could be that some Phi Ed teachers would say, now in the state of Minnesota we call them Phi Ed, in California we called them PE, and I remember trying to explain to a kid when they go to PE, when I first moved to the state of Minnesota, they had the foggiest idea what I was talking about, so I don't know exactly how you say that here in North Dakota. But for Phi Ed teachers, sometimes they think, and any one of us, it can be a music teacher, reading teacher, math teacher, science teacher, they all can get into their own little areas. My counselor can get, well, I'm the counselor, right? However, you are reflected in our academic scores. That is where we are all evaluated as a building. But our Phi Ed teachers, if we can help them to see that what they do is essential for math and for reading as well, because they are helping prepare the students for that. One of the things that I would encourage you to think about would be collaborating with them. If you're students who are struggling academically, perhaps what you have to do is think about, what do we need to do to get this kid moving before reading or before math? Or if there are students who are having behavioral challenges in the classroom, what can we do not as a reward, but as a very systematic plan to help the student with increasing their fitness, increasing their movement, to change their behaviors. So I definitely encourage you to think about how can you use them as an intervention for the students. Sometimes we look at, okay, if a kid's struggling with behaviors, let's look at a behavior chart where they can get stickers and a smiley face, but perhaps what can we do to increase that fitness? Especially with some of the mental health issues that our students are facing today, The chart might work at a time when they're in first grade, but the reality is if they're struggling with anxiety or depression or some of those very real mental health needs, fitness can be a lifelong tool for them. And so our goals, what were our original goals?
So originally to increase academic growth, increase positive behaviors, increase experiences, close the opportunity gap, and engage students in school.
And so we started to look, because if it wasn't working, I know for a fact my superintendent would be saying, you better be focusing on some other things. But for the past few years, we have been looking at some of our growth. Now, our proficiency has remained somewhat low because what we have found is that our students that are moving into the school are generally lower than the students that we have. However, when we are looking at growth, the percentage of students meeting or exceeding their expected growth, the 2012-13 school year, we were number 1 in reading, number 1 math for grade 5. We were had the second highest growth rate out of 17 elementaries for our special ed students, number 3 in math for all students when we're looking at 17 schools. We are one of the schools that has the highest poverty rate as well. We also, the 2013-14, you can see that our academic scores have been some of the strongest in the district. 2015, 2016, when we looked at, 25 is the top, the way I have it worded here. 25 schools, I did say 17 elementary, but 25 schools, middle school and high schools. We were 22 out of 25, so if you're 25 is the top. 22nd school for academic growth rate on the state tests. Out of the 25 schools in the Osseo area schools, we had the top growth for closing the achievement gap. 86% of our students were ranked in the high growth rate in math and 83% in the high growth rate in reading. As I mentioned, we started off with, the year before I was there, 55 suspensions and the building was out of control.
The big shift is our kids want to be at school. They like it. It's fun. And people care about it. And we have connections with them. And so we can deal with a lot of this minor stuff and get them back learning really quickly.
People describe our school as calm. And I was thinking, calm? We have 200 kids on 200 bouncy balls in the classrooms. But it is basically a calm, fun, engaging school. Just for comparison, the school next to us had about 70 suspensions last year. They do have about 100 more students, but they did have about 70 suspensions. I do remind my teachers that we are still a high needs school, but what we're doing, we have found to be quite effective. We couldn't have done this without a number of our community partners, and so one of the things I would definitely encourage you to do is to reach out to those community partners. I do take time after every one of them to write a handwritten thank you note to the board of directors, to others, because they do provide a tremendous amount of financial support. But we have the Lopet Foundation, our Parks District. So I encourage you, think about the parks that you might have in your communities, the park districts, Girls on the Run, Twin Cities in Motion. We also have the District Foundation. So there's money out there, and also the YMCA. There are places that are very willing to support, especially if it's a high-needs school, because they want to see a difference and they want to make a difference in the community. Well, thank you, and we'll be here if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer any questions. Have a nice evening.
To view this program again, go to freetv.org or watch on Community Access Television. To order a copy, email info@freetv.org or call 258-8767.